The rain in Lagos did not fall. It attacked. Amina Bello stood pressed against the crumbling wall of a bus stop on Lagos Island, her yellow blouse so through, her single good handbag clutched to her chest like it was a prayer. Around her, Okadas screamed past, spraying muddy water. A downfall conductor leaned out of a yellow bus and laughed at something she could not hear over the thunder. She had not eaten since yesterday afternoon, half a plate of jollof rice a kind market woman had offered her, and her phone had died at 6 that morning, along with every hope she had attached to it. The interview at Cornerstone Finance had lasted 4 minutes. The woman behind the desk had not even asked for her certificate. She had looked at Amina's shoes, cheap, sensible, northern, and made her decision with her eyes. "We filled the position," the woman had said, her Lagos accent polished like a new coin. "You can leave." That was the 5th rejection in 3 weeks. Amina closed her eyes and pressed her back harder against the wall. Behind her eyelids she saw her mother's face, old before its time, creased from years of groundnut farming in Katsina, and her younger brother Umar, who believed his big sister had gone to conquer Lagos, who told his classmates she worked in an office. She had promised them she would not come home empty-handed. She had left Kankara in April with 11,000 naira, 1 suitcase, and a letter of recommendation from her secondary school principal that called her a girl of uncommon discipline. Her father had died the previous rainy season, a short illness that ate everything they had, and with 4 younger siblings still in school, Amina had looked at Lagos the way a traveler looks at the horizon, not with certainty, but with no other direction to choose. She had moved in with a distant cousin in Mushin, slept on a mat in the parlor, woken before 5 every morning to help with the household before beginning her daily marathon of job hunting. She was bright, she had graduated top of her commercial class, could type 80 words per minute, and spoke Hausa, Yoruba, and English with equal ease. None of it, so far, had been enough. Lagos did not care how hard you had worked to get here. Lagos only asked what you had to show for it. The black Mercedes appeared from nowhere, or rather, from the underground car park of the Eco-Atlantic Tower that rose behind the bus stop. It pulled out fast, the driver misjudging the rain-slick curb, and the front wheel clipped a puddle so violent it drenched Amina from her knees to her chin. She gasped. Then, before she could stop herself, she turned and knocked on the car window. Later, she would not be able to explain what possessed her. Perhaps it was hunger. Perhaps it was 3 weeks of swallowed humiliation finally finding a door to burst through. The window came down slowly, the way power lowers itself, reluctantly, only partway. The man inside was not what she expected. He was perhaps 40, with a jaw cut like a sculptor had argued with it, wearing a steel grey agbada over a white shirt. He looked at her with eyes that had learned long ago to reveal nothing. "Your driver just soaked me," Amina said. Her voice did not shake. She was surprised by that. The man studied her for a moment, her soaked blouse, the handbag, the quiet fury in her posture, as though she were a document he had not been briefed on. "Ibrahim," he said without turning, "give her something for her clothes." "I don't want your money," Amina said. She had not planned to say that either. An apology is sufficient. Something shifted in the man's face. Not much. A fraction. "I apologize," he said. Then, still studying her, "You speak well. What do you do?" "I'm looking for work. Administrative. Secretarial. Anything honest." A pause stretched between them, long enough that Amina almost stepped back. "My personal assistant collapsed with appendicitis this morning," the man said finally. "I have 4 meetings, 2 site visits, and a board dinner between now and 8 o'clock tonight. I need someone who can take notes, manage a schedule, and not be a distraction. I can offer you 15,000 naira for 12 hours. After that, you're free to go." Amina looked at him. "I don't even know your name." Turned Ajayi. She knew the name. Everyone in Lagos knew the name. Ajayi Group. tech infrastructure, oil logistics. The kind of wealth that appeared in newspapers beside words like visionary and empire. She got in the car. The Ajayi Group Tower in Victoria Island was made of the kind of silence that money buys: thick carpet, chilled air, staff who moved like well-rehearsed actors who had never once doubted the script. Amina was handed a tablet, a headset, and a printed schedule before she had finished dripping dry. A security woman with kind eyes handed her a change of clothes from what appeared to be a spare wardrobe and showed her to a bathroom that was larger than her cousin's entire flat. She emerged in a clean white blouse and black trousers and was immediately handed a coffee she hadn't asked for and a briefing document she read in the elevator before the doors opened on the 22nd floor. Tunde Ajayi moved through his world like a current, fast, invisible, reshaping everything it touched. He expected her to keep up, and she did. She managed 3 calls, redirected 2 suppliers, and sat silent and sharp-eyed through a 90-minute meeting with European investors while she transcribed notes faster than the junior associate beside her could type. During a 50-minute break, Tunde appeared beside her at the window. "You went to university." "I didn't have the fees. I was top of my class in secondary school." She said it simply, without apology. He was quiet. Outside, Lagos sprawled to the horizon, the choked roads, the market rooftops, the thin smoke of 1,000 cooking fires, and beyond it the flat green shimmer of the lagoon. "You're not afraid of me," he said. It came out like an observation, and underneath it, something that might have been curiosity. "Should I be?" He almost smiled. "Most people are." "Power is not the same as strength," she said quietly. "From where I come from, the strongest people I know have nothing. Power is just noise." He looked at her then, fully, the way he hadn't allowed himself to before. It was during the car ride to the 3rd meeting, a site visit in Lekki, that it happened. The traffic on the bridge had locked them in a standstill, and for the first time all day Tunde Ajayi had nothing to do. No call, no document. He sat very still in the back seat and stared out at the water, and Amina noticed that for a man who ran an empire, he looked extraordinarily alone. "How long has it been?" she asked quietly. He turned. "What?" "Since you had someone to simply be with. Not to manage or impress. Just to be with." He was silent for so long she thought she had gone too far. "Then, my wife left 4 years ago." She said this life, he gestured, a short arc that seemed to encompass the car, the tower, the whole construction of himself, that this life left no room for anything real. She wasn't wrong. He told her about his mother then, as though the traffic had given him permission. How she had scraped together bus fare to send him to school in Ibadan. How she had died of treatable diabetes the year he made his first billion, because he had been in London closing a deal and had not understood the call from his aunt clearly enough. How he had bought the best hospital equipment for 3 rural clinics after, but how buying things had never once touched the particular silence that loss leaves behind. Amina listened without flinching. "My father died of something treatable too," she said. "We just didn't have the money." "You had the money and weren't there. The result is the same. We carry it differently, but we carry it." He looked out at the water. "You're very direct," he said. "I'm poor and hungry and I have nothing to protect. That makes directness easy." He laughed. It was a sudden, unguarded sound, like something falling off a high shelf, and she could tell from Ibrahim's eyes in the rearview mirror that the driver had not heard it in a very long time. The board dinner was held in a private room at a hotel in Ikoyi, and it was here that things went wrong. Near the end of the meal, one of the directors, a heavyset man from Abuja who smelled of imported cologne and old influence, asked Amina, in the condescending way that some men deploy like a weapon, to pour his wine. Not as a request. As an expectation. As though 12 hours of competence had been invisible and she was simply staff of a different kind. The table waited. Tunde's face was a wall. Amina set down her pen, met the man's eyes, and said, calmly and clearly, "I'm not the waitstaff, sir. I'm Mr. Ajayi's assistant. The restaurant staff will be happy to help you." The silence was crystalline. Then Tunde said, with a quiet authority that ended the moment completely, "She's right. Let's continue." Later, in the lobby, while Ibrahim brought the car around, Tunde said nothing for a long moment. "Then, you could have just poured it. You could have kept your head down." "I know," Amina said. "But I didn't come to Lagos to disappear. I came to be seen." 8 o'clock. They sat outside the hotel's entrance while the city settled around them, Lagos shrugging off its daytime chaos into the quieter of its nights. The driver was giving them space, or perhaps he simply knew that some moments should not be disturbed. "I'm going to give you the 15,000, Tunde said. "We agreed on that already. And an additional envelope. For your brother's school fees for the year." Amina went still. "I didn't tell you about Umar for money." "I know." He reached into his jacket and produced a card, white, heavy paper, just a name and a number. "And I want you to come in on Monday. There is a junior development officer position that opens next month. I'll have HR set up a proper process, fair, blind to your shoes, blind to where you're from. But I'll make sure the position exists." She stared at the card. "Why?" He considered the question honestly. "Because today I had 12 hours with someone who told me the truth. I'd forgotten what that felt like." Amina Bello took the card. She held it with both hands, the way her mother had taught her to receive a gift, with your whole self, not just your fingers. "Thank you," she said. Then, because she was who she was, "I'll earn it." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm giving it." She called her mother from a charged phone at a filling station on the way back to Mushin. It was past 9, and she could hear the compound sounds behind her mother's voice, a baby crying next door, the generator humming, the specific texture of home. "How is Lagos treating you?" her mother asked. Amina thought of the rain that morning. The rejection. The woman who had looked at her shoes. She thought of a man sitting alone in a tower that touched the clouds, who had forgotten what an honest voice sounded like. She thought of Umar, who told his classmates she worked in an office. "Lagos and I," she said, "are just getting to know each other." She hung up. She pressed the card flat against her palm and looked out through the cracked window of the downfall as it heaved through the night-lit streets, the neon and the noise, the hawkers and the horns, the whole impossible, exhausting, luminous city, and for the first time since she had arrived, she did not feel like a visitor passing through. She felt like she belonged to the story that was just beginning. And somewhere across town, in a penthouse that had been quiet for 4 years, Tunde Ajayi sat at his window and looked out at the same city, and found that for once, the silence did not feel entirely like loss.